I can't think of any higher honor than a compliment from Toyin, and so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Erik Twist to the podium.
I owe Mr. Julian a lot of money for that one. All right, I'm going to face you guys. Is that all right? All right. Thank you, Mr. Julian. I'm honored to be invited to speak with you on this momentous evening. Graduates, when you walk across this platform to receive your diploma, it will be, as I know you know, the culmination of literally thousands of hours of earnest effort and love. Your own effort, of course, but also the effort and love of your parents and your teachers. I can only hope to honor all the toil and faith they have put into serving your young but eternally significant souls these past few years. In fact, why don't we take a moment right now just to thank them? Can we do that? As I said, I'm honored to speak with you this evening, but I'm a little daunted too, because now I know that my speech is the last thing standing between you and your diploma. And thus, if you're hanging on my every word, it might only be in the hope that each word is the last. Even worse, I'm going to go full Greathearts on you tonight. And I'm going to start by sharing some poetry. Well, okay, poetry of sorts. I've decided to mix it up a little bit. After all, you're not here for another poetry class. You want a graduation speech, right? You want something that prepares you for the world. So let's turn to today's world, shall we? Let's gaze at it for a moment. History tells us that Sophocles was great in part because he won 24 out of 30 drama festivals in ancient Athens. That's true. That's not a laugh line. What happened there? What's going on? Where's the dean of students? The Duomo in Florence came about when a young goldsmith named Filippo Brunelleschi won a city design contest. You all know this. It still inspires visitors to this day, 800 years later. So I thought, all right, who are the judges of great art today? It's the people, of course, right? We're a democracy. And where do we find what the people judge to be excellent? Exactly. The most played tracks on Spotify. So to prepare this speech, I've dipped in to the greatest art of the 21st century, as curated for me by the users of Spotify, to see what it tells us about living greatly. I wanted to find the modern Sophocles. And in the top 5, I found a gem of poetic artistry, Rockstar by Post Malone. Nice solid name, Post. I expect this will lift our spirits and keep us grounded. Man, I feel like a rock star. I. All my brothers got that gas, and they always be smoking like a Rasta, messing with me, call up on a Uzi, and show up, man, they them shot us. When my homies pull up on your block, they make things go tat, tat, tat. A pow, pow, I. I'm not done. This is beautiful. Close that door, we blowing smoke. She asked me, light a fire like I'm Morrison, son. I act a fool on stage, probably leave my, I'm not going to say that word out loud, show in a cop car. Stuff was legendary stuff. Threw a TV out the window of the montage, cocaine on the table, liquor pouring, don't give a beep. Dude, Your girlfriend is a groupie. She's just trying to get in saying, I'm with the band. I. I told you I was trying to get off this circuit of commencements. I think I finally did it. Thank you. All right. All right. Now here's where I tear it all apart. So I'm not sure that's going to make it into the Great Hearts curriculum. But let's recap, shall we? Ancient Athens finds greatness in capturing the tragedy of the human condition. Right? And Renaissance Florence pursues it in immortalizing man and creation in marble and in durable pigments. And today we imagine greatness in smoking like a Rasta. And homies that make that thing, I got to do it again, go tat, tat, tat. Aren't you glad to be leaving Great Hearts for the real world? Yeah. No doubt some of you really are. But listen, we're already living there. We're already living there. This stuff isn't foreign to us. It surrounds us. It's the air that you breathe. It's the air that we all breathe. No matter how much Lincoln Prep, in all of its beautiful weirdness, and in fact, you all, to be honest, that's how we built these schools. To be weird, purposefully, to be different from those schools down the street. To surround students with teachers who can say with confidence that there are true good and beautiful things, and correspondingly that there are false, bad, and ugly things. But no matter how much Lincoln Prep and its weirdness has succeeded to give you a sanctuary away from the noise of popular culture, the noise persists. So I share, and I'll say it, this vulgar little ditty, which is what it is, this modern poetry, not just to condemn the cesspool of modern culture, although it is condemnable and it is a cesspool, but I think it illustrates a few points that are worthy of your serious consideration. I really do. So, like any good speech, I've got 3 points. Number one, and joking aside, this is the culture out there. This mindless hedonism, this shameless vulgarity. The human person imagined as nothing more than a vacuum for sucking up pleasurable experience and spewing out self-expression. And colleges are quite often ground zero of that culture, although if you're not going off to college, you'll find it everywhere else. You don't need to fear it, of course not, but you do need to ready yourself for the encounter, to ready your souls for the encounter. In all likelihood, you will be told in words and in actions that freedom lies in living for yourself only, in pursuing pleasure without consequences. You'll be told that despising tradition and disregarding its norms is a marker of your own unique independence. You'll be told that consumption is the surest way to define yourself. You're also likely to be told that there's no difference really between greatness and the gutter. I mean, why not study Rockstar instead of Antigone or Michelangelo? There's no order of higher or lower. It's all just a matter of taste, you'll be told. All of this is part of the same attack on truth, goodness, and beauty that's being waged today falsely in the name of your liberation. And that brings me to my second point. You will certainly find contempt for truth, goodness, and beauty in the culture outside, but remember this, that beneath that contempt lies a longing, a great hunger. No sane person, well, maybe a teenager, but have teenagers ever been sane? No. No sane person could hear the lyrics I read to you just now and conclude that they are the expression of a happy soul who is at peace, who knows who he is, his dignity, and the dignity of those around him. You all have read St. Augustine's Confessions, so I'm sure you'll remember its most frequently quoted line. Thou hast formed us for thyself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless till they find rest in thee. Thou hast formed us for thyself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless till they find rest in thee. Now, we could argue the theological point, but we should be able to agree on the philosophical one. Human beings yearn to rest in true happiness. And in that yearning, there is a desire for transcendence, for something that takes us outside of our small selves and gives our lives direction and purpose. You'll also recall, I hope, that in Augustine's case, he follows that yearning for direction and purpose down various dead-end paths of sensuality and false belief. It takes him, 100 pages, 150, and countless decades of prayer from his mother, St. Monica, before he starts to understand what he is truly searching for. I remind you of this because in the years to come, you're probably going to encounter a lot of people who resemble the young Augustine. Maybe you resemble him today. People who fling themselves into the pursuit of pleasure, into the kind of escapism sketched out in Rockstar. But you do not enter these stormy seas unequipped. As I said a minute ago, you've been formed at Great Hearts to chart a course towards a life of purpose. You've read the confessions. You know that sensuality and false ideology is not where the journey ends, where it mustn't end. Remember that. Remember that. I say that to you as a father. Remember that. And when people tell you otherwise, remember that they are themselves restless in their souls, yearning for transcendence, but trapped because they have no compass or measure of happiness or truth beyond themselves and their own experience. Be kind to them. Be kind to them. Love them. And remember that love is patient. But also remember that love delights in the truth, so never be afraid to speak it. And that brings me to my third, hold your applause, last point. This has only got like 7 or 8 pages connected to it. I know that part of my job as a commencement speaker is to tell you to go out there and do great things, right? To change the world, to make a big impact, some sort of pregame pep talk for life. So far, I've focused on more of the negatives. The culture's a mess. People are profoundly confused about where truth and happiness is. This is a Great Hearts commencement, so I'm forced to say that by contract. But let's not end there. Instead, let's turn together to one final question. If greatness lies not in hedonism or secular political consumerist ideology, how do we prepare for greatness in our lives today? How ought we to prepare for it? I want to suggest to you that it's not where one might expect. It's certainly not where the culture looks for it. One of the things that's true about greatness, and I think you'll realize this the more that you grow and mature, is that it lies not in the grand gesture or epic accomplishment, but in the accumulation of little things done well and consistently through life. You might notice, I hope you notice, I'm sneaking in a little bit of Aristotle here. He tells us that excellence consists, right, of practicing virtuous actions to the point that they become ingrained habits. Greatness is the fruit of habituation in the virtues. And habits are formed by taking small actions consistently and repeatedly through our lives. Our moral lives are a reflection of a long line of little acts. That means the small choices you make matter. They matter because they're contributing to the habits you developed and that will shape the course of your life. But just because they matter, it does not mean that anyone will immediately take notice. In fact, the greatest acts are often done by people who are forgotten. Now, throw a TV out a hotel room window, rap about it, put it to a catchy melody and beat, use it to parade your liberation, your independence, your disdain for tradition and rules and limits and virtue, and yeah, the world will notice. But a life well lived, not so much. But the truth is, the happy life is tied to the moral life. Sadness is usually the first fruit of self-centered liberation. Lately, I've been reading and thinking about Florence Nightingale. She's far from forgotten, of course, well, I hope. Oh, there you go. I like it. But she's a perfect example of the kind of greatness I hope you choose to pursue. You've heard of Florence Nightingale, right? Okay, no. Okay, that's fine. Shame on great hearts. Okay, it's probably my fault. She's the founder of modern nursing. She saved the lives of countless soldiers during her life and brought mercy and love to just as many bedsides of the dying. Her ministry of mercy began in nightly rounds, visiting wounded soldiers. She could have been asleep. She could have been pursuing her own interess. But instead, she was caring for strangers who were mangled, delirious, festering, dying. Her many so-called thankless acts, how many so-called thankless acts did she undertake? How many times did she wash and change the bandages of men whom she knew would never survive? She couldn't stop men's bodies from being broken on the field of battle. So she focused on getting people to do the small things well. She focused on where she could have influence, like having nurses sanitize surgical implements or change bed sheets to minimize infections, strategically opening windows, which at the time was a novelty, across the building to maximize airflow in the infirmary, improving waste disposal, organizing medical supply chains and usage, and visiting the sick each night with a simple lantern guiding her way. I have no doubt that her efforts seemed pointless. They were certainly mocked by many of the doctors who considered Florence's activities odd, if not outright absurd. They were wrong. Her repeated acts of selflessness, repeated year after year, war after war, changed the face of healthcare and medicine around the world forever. And here's something else I have no doubt about, that Florence Nightingale lived a happy life. Not an easy one, not one of comfort, not one fixated on satisfying her own desires, but yes, a happy one. Why? Because those that ultimately find happiness find it through living for others, even, yes, suffering for others. That's the idea I want to leave you with tonight. The greatest men and women are those who understand love as a giving away of themselves for the sake of others. Far from being enslaved to their desires, they sacrifice those desires for the sake of others. Not just once, but consistently, habitually, and in the small things. The world will tell you that sacrificing your own desires is a bad thing. It will tell you that you must be true to yourself, meaning chase your desires wherever they may lead. You do you and all that nonsense. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. What you'll find is that paradoxically, in giving of yourself, you are never diminished. In fact, in building strong habits of selfless love, you actually become free. And in doing the small things well, you achieve greatness. You're well on your way, class of 2023. Congratulations. Now, go do some great things.